After completing my first ultra marathon, I wasn't able to run because of an injury. Here's 2 to 3 exercises for each major leg muscle that I did to be able to get back to running as fast as possible after being injured. These exercises were all part of a plan built by my physical therapist to get me healthy and keep me from getting injured again because I have some big miles planned in the near future. If this is your first time here, my name is Christian and I'm an ultra runner and a US Navy veteran. First off, I do want to say that if you're already working through an injury, usually the best thing you can do is go to a physical therapist. I'm going to try to cover as much as I can in this video, but working with a physical therapist really is one of the best ways to come back from an injury because they're professionals and can run you through an evaluation to find exactly what the problem is and the best, fastest way to address it. But if you don't have that option available to you, or you're just trying to prevent any running related injuries, then this should be a good place to start. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the exercises. So what are you doing when you're running? Well, you're basically hopping from one foot to the other. That means that all of your body weight, in addition to the force of your momentum and gravity as you fall forward, are coming down onto each leg individually. This is why it's really important to do a lot of single leg exercises, and a lot of the exercises I go through today are going to be single leg, or they'll be exercises that are done with the intention of working you up to a single leg variation. I'm gonna divide the exercises based on the target muscle, so if you wanna skip to a specific section or target muscle, then you can use the chapters below. First, we'll focus on the quads. Quad strength is extremely important when running because they're taking on a massive amount of impact when you land on them, especially when going downhill. A great way to start working on your quads is with an assisted reverse Nordic curl. I prefer the band assisted ones rather than putting something behind me, but if you don't have anywhere to attach a band, then that's an option too. The nice part is that with the band, you can adjust where your hands are to quickly get more or less assistance as you work through multiple sets, rather than having to move around a bunch of stuff behind you. To do a reverse Nordic curl, you're gonna start with your knees stacked directly under you and tighten your core and glutes as you slowly lean back. Like with all exercises we discussed today, you wanna control both directions of this movement. Don't just allow your body weight to fall backwards. When you reach as far down as you can go, ideally feeling a big stretch through your quads, then you wanna come back up and return to the starting position. Next is an isometric split squat. And I like to do this one with a banded row just because it cues me to keep my core tight. Get into your split squat, making sure that the majority of your weight is on your front leg. Your back leg is really just serving to balance you. Throughout the exercise, you wanna stay nice and upright, keeping your core tight. Split squats are great because you can do them in all kinds of different variations. You can do this isometric, you can do this alternating and stationary with some dumbbells, or you can do it with a barbell and go back and forth across the room. You can also add a band that's pulling sideways to help strengthen your glutes and keep your knees more stable. No matter which variation you choose, just know that I hate these with a passion, but I do them anyways because they make me a better runner. Next up is banded goblet squats. Goblet squats really work a bunch of different muscles. The nice thing about them is that because the weight is held in front of you, it does tend to target your quads more. The band just serves as a cue to drive your knees out against, and this really helped fix my squat form. It's also very easy for someone starting out to go from doing regular bodyweight air squats to just adding a little bit of progressive overload with these. The important thing to remember with a goblet squat is keeping the weight at a level where you can control the descent to get to at least parallel and a weight that you can keep your torso upright. You can remove the band as you progress if you no longer need that cue to drive your knees out and track them over your feet. Some other variations are goblet buck squats if you're having issues with your squat form, or an elevated heel goblet squat if you have poor ankle mobility and need help getting deeper into the squat. Next, we're gonna focus on hamstrings. Your hamstrings help stabilize your knee and control your leg while it's driving up. The front of your leg is the show muscles, and the back of your leg, your hamstrings and calves, are the go muscles. So obviously important, don't neglect them just because you can't see them as much. For your hamstrings, first we're gonna do the single leg RDL, and for this version, we're gonna start with using a band to help stabilize. This is where I had to start with my RDLs, because I had never really done much single leg work, hence the injury I had. As you hinge at your hips, you wanna keep your upper body straight. Keep your head and neck in line with your back and bring your other leg up. Control the descent until you feel a deep stretch through your hamstring. Single leg RDLs have so many variations that you can do. As you progress, you can easily just lose the band and add a dumbbell instead. You can do these from an elevated position to get a deeper stretch, and you can also do these at a slight diagonal, and you'll feel them more into your glutes as well. Next, we have hamstring walkouts. This is a great beginner hamstring exercise because you can easily control the intensity. While lying on your back, you bridge up and walk your feet out on your heels. The further you walk from your body, the harder it will be. Walk them backwards towards you and repeat. Single leg hamstring bridges. Very similar to the walkouts, but they can be modified by adding a box or a bench to elevate your legs. Just like with the walkouts, the further you are from the bench, the harder these will be. Keep your weight up on your heel and control both the eccentric and concentric parts of the movement to keep as much tension as possible on your hamstrings as you bridge up. I also add in a tap with my opposite heel to make the time under tension even longer. Next is calves, and there's so many variations of calf raises that I'm just gonna rapid fire a few. Deficit calf raises, split squat calf raises, and weighted heel raise walks. If you want more variation, you can also lean against a wall like this and hit the calves from different angles. You can do all these with body weight and you can add more resistance to them. Once you can comfortably do the variations with some resistance, then you can transition to doing single leg calf raises, maybe throw in some stairs, and you'll probably be good to go. Like with all the other exercises we've discussed, it's not about doing them fast. Remember to control both parts of the movement to maintain tension in the muscle. In this section, I'm gonna throw in a few exercises for your hip flexors, core, and groin muscles. These will all assist in stabilizing you while you're running. A lot of these exercises will work more than one target muscle, but I just have them listed under which one I'm prioritizing with the specific variation that I'm doing. First, for hip flexors, leg lifts over a dumbbell or any object really. While doing leg lifts, you can lift them over anything of varying heights based on what you're capable of. Really focus on keeping your body upright, maybe against a wall if that helps, and keeping the whole movement slow and controlled. Next is standing hip flexion with a band or lying hip flexor dumbbell raises. Both of these variations will hit your hip flexors in a very similar way, but it really depends on the equipment that you have access to. For the standing hip flexion, you attach a band around the base of something like the squat rack, keep your core tight, and with control, raise your leg until you feel the contraction in your hip flexor. Slowly lower your leg back to the starting position. You can also do this lying on an elevated bench if you have similar dumbbells to my power blocks or if you have kettlebells. You don't need a lot of weight for these, just keep the whole movement slow and controlled. I don't know how many more times I'm gonna have to say that. If you don't have an elevated bench, these can be done standing on an elevated surface as well. There is a million different core exercises out there, but these are just a few that I like that are a little bit out of the ordinary. You can definitely just stick to hanging leg raises, or if you can't do those, then hanging knee raises if you have a bar to use. First up, we have dumbbell plank pull-throughs. These require a little bit of coordination, but once you get used to the feeling of driving through one arm and the opposite leg to stabilize, then these are an awesome core exercise. You don't have to do them with your leg raised. I'm just doing that to show you where I'm putting all of my pressure to keep me balanced. The weight that you use doesn't have to be super heavy, just make sure you focus on not over-rotating your trunk. Next, we have bear crawls, both forward and backwards. For this variation of them, you want to really focus on almost scraping your knees against the ground, and you'll feel it much more in your core. If you don't have a lot of space, you can do just a few steps forward and back and repeat. Really what you're focusing on is not rotating your trunk throughout the movement. You can see from this angle that I have very little rotation in my upper body. While the other exercises definitely use your obliques, this last one is primarily targeting your obliques. Side planks, which you can either hold for a set amount of time or you can do controlled pulses for reps. Both will work great to target the obliques, which are used for torso rotation as well as stabilizing your core. Lastly, we have your groin muscles. Please, if you are a runner, do not neglect your groin muscles. There's a lot that happens with those muscles and with how they tie into the rest of your leg that affects your leg drive and stability. Side lying adductor raises. In my opinion, this is one of the easier exercises to start with for your groin muscles. Start by lying on your side with your top leg posted up to keep you stable, and you're going to raise and slowly lower your opposite leg. This looks relatively easy, but if you don't train these muscles like me, then this is actually way harder than it seems, and these muscles lacking was a major contributor to my injury. Once the side lying adductor raises start to feel too easy, you can progress to lateral lunges. The first time you do these, try them without weight to get used to the movement. When you step out, you want to hinge your hips slightly and you should feel a deep stretch in your groin muscle on the leg that you keep stationary. Once you get used to this with just body weight, you can slowly increase the resistance with a dumbbell. So that was a mouthful, and this is by no means an all-inclusive list, but hopefully you learned something new from this video, and maybe this will help someone avoid the painful process of recovery that I had to go through. You don't need to do all of these exercises, but just doing one or two of them for each muscle regularly will hopefully help keep you out of the physical therapy office so you can keep on running and crushing those big miles. Anyways, that's it for today. I will see you in the next one.